Sets up a block for Teddy Bridgewater. He might go all the way. And he is taken down at the 6-yard line. The fake. Bridgewater has it. And he runs it in for a touchdown. This is 3rd and 2. Off the fake. Bridgewater in trouble. And he flipped it to Adrian Peterson. And Peterson with lots of room. Stafford, quick pitch outside, completes it. And the ball pumps loose. It's recovered by the Vikings. They give it to the fullback, Zach Line. Touchdown Vikings. Stafford. And this one is intercepted.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sustained Pride podcast. This week, I'm joined once again by my co-host Fano, as well as Detroit Lions locker room insider Mike Mady. On today's show, we will discuss the past week loss to the Minnesota Vikings, our offensive woes, and preview the upcoming home opener versus Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. Let's start the show. Check status. Panic in Motown. Okay, we're 0-2. We have a Civ offensive line. We have no running game. And our QB is a crash test dummy. What is happening? How are we 0-2 right now?
This team was supposed to be good. What is this?
This team was supposed to be good. We predicted that this team was guaranteed to win last week. And I can say that we are dumb for doing something like that. We never should be making predictions for the Lions to win. We're depressed. We're Lions fans. Just like everybody listening. We need someone right now to talk us off the ledge. Where is our white knight?
Scout.com, Lions Report, beat writer Mike Mady. What's going on?
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. And it's been a rough start. It's been a rough start to the year. You guys are saying 0-2. Difficult start. You started off with the Civ offensive line. Obviously that's a place that you want to look at first. There's been struggles there. I think up and down the offensive line, it's been unbelievable how poor they've played. I don't think anyone expected this was supposed to be a strength. They invested in the offensive line. They traded down. They got Manny Ramirez. They drafted Lincoln Tomlinson.
And Tomlinson didn't even play.
And then the other is interesting too because Waddle was active for the game. Waddle had an injury-plagued year last year, had that late injury that required surgery. He rehabs off-season, doesn't really participate much in the off-season program, but comes in late for training camp. And not comes in late as in arrives late, but was sidelined with injury. And he's active for the game, and so you wonder why he doesn't play. And Caldwell steadfastly stood behind coach's decision. The words coach's decision were what he kept going back to.
So we have a young offensive line. They seem athletic. Why are we using that athleticism and getting them out in space, letting Abdullah run the ball? What in your mind is the thinking behind not running a lot of screen plays? I mentioned last week that I thought maybe we could go use the width of the field to beat the Vikings because they stack the box a little bit. They like to plug up the middle of the field. Why didn't we use the edges of the field to maybe get downfield a little bit more?
It's interesting because I think that, and it's hard for me to be the one to say it, but I question the play design a little bit in a lot of different areas. Part of it is when they run the ball, and they don't run the ball too often, and a lot of that has been game circumstance and game flow that dictates
16,
that.
Just to interrupt, 16 rushes this week, including Matt Stafford's team high 20 yards. Team high Matt Stafford rush yards. Think about that.
One thing I noticed looking at the last couple games is that it's interesting to me how unfrequently they pull their guards in the running game. How they're not.
That's what I'm saying. Let's get these athletes moving their feet, these big bodies downfield. What is going on here? Why can't we seem to pick up a run game that looked pretty decent in week 1 and then, pun intended, run away from it in week 2.
There isn't effective blocking. The play design has been rough. You haven't had the space to run behind. I think their best running back to me has looked like Theo Riddick. I believe he played a lot. He played more than any other running back last week. I thought Abdullah wasn't able to flash the way that he did the previous week. To your point, I don't think that they're getting them out in space enough. But at the same time, I think that you can manufacture the touches a little bit better. They're not doing that. It was interesting because there was a screen pass to Joique Bell at earlier in the game. I don't remember exactly what it came. I think it was early in the second quarter, but I'm not positive. But they threw a screen pass to Joique, and I thought it was the worst designed screen pass I've ever seen. They throw it out to him. They don't get anyone to be able to block. I think the first person over there is Larry Warford, and he isn't able to get there in time to make an effective block. Joique is essentially surrounded by 3 people that take him down right away. You have 2 receivers over to that side that run like kind of clearing routes, but Minnesota's in a zone coverage, so you're pretty much just left with several defenders in space to tackle your running back, and I don't understand how. Obviously that's not how they drew it up in terms of what they expected to happen, but it's too many things like that I'm seeing hurt them. You
mentioned execution, and I know that I listened to the Caldwell presser, and one of the things that he said that kind of triggered an alarm for me, and it was something we talked about before the show, was that he was saying that his running backs weren't following the play design, weren't cutting to the holes that were expected to be there, and were kind of following their own route. What do you think about that?
Is that just coaches covering for his players, young guys, a lot of guys who might have, after the game, you look at the stat sheet and maybe all eyes are on running backs. Is that something maybe he's protecting the players there, you think, with that statement?
I think Caldwell's trying to dilute the blame, kind of to your point. Yeah. I think he's saying it's not just the line and it's not just the running backs. It's a combination of things. It's not the play calling. It's not everything. It's not one thing. It's kind of a combination of everything. And so, I mean, you go back and you look at it, and you could see that the Lions run a lot of stretch plays when they're trying to run the ball. Not a lot of right up the gut runs. They do have some, and I mean, there are not a lot of runs, period, I guess. But you see that there is not a lot of holes to choose from. Also, to be completely honest, these guys are getting blown up at the line of scrimmage, and it's tough. I mean, I watched one play where they tried to run the ball to the outside a little bit, and you watch Lucas not even get a hand on the defender. He gets juked by the defensive lineman, and he come in and just make an instant tackle.
I remember that play pretty specifically.
So I mean, that's what's happened. You're not going to ever be able to run the ball, but at the end of the day, that's the other thing. The question becomes, what do you do if the run game's not there? How do you overcome that?
Now, do you think that Joe Lombardi needs to be a little bit more creative in his play calling?
I don't know if it's.
We talked a bit last week after we watched the Cowboys game about how much maybe we might have underestimated Linehan's ability to play call, and we, as a fan base, maybe mocked it a little bit. Compare him and what you see to Joe Lombardi, if at all possible. I mean, that's probably a tough thing to do, but if you could give us a comparison on what maybe Joe Lombardi is lacking.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. Now, it's difficult to compare them directly, but I understand. You look at what Linehan was able to accomplish, not just statistically, but I always admired his play design. I thought that he had very well designed plays that created getting people into space. I remember I wrote an article about this back his last season, where there was a lot of fan clamoring and angst about a lot of empty backfield sets on third and short. Why aren't we running the ball? Why aren't we stacking the line of scrimmage? Why aren't we getting a fullback in there, an extra lineman, an extra tight end, and getting that yard or two? And I showed that he was calling the right plays, but the execution wasn't there. He would have 5 receivers. He would run, a quick route with like a Reggie Bush type in the slot, and he'd be open, and maybe Stafford would miss the throw or something like that. But the play was there. You look at a similar. You want to compare. Now you look at the very.
Yeah, well, I mean, those were some of Stafford's kind of best years. Well, I mean, to be fair with Lombardi, he hasn't had him for too long, but. Let's focus more on Lombardi now. Just specifically, what do you think he's missing in his play calling?
Well, that's the question. Is it play calling? Is it play design? Or is it execution? And so you go back to an empty... I think the Lions do some good work out of the shotgun and with more receivers and more routes. I think that you can create space well with the type of players that they have. You look at one of the first plays of the game, against the Vikings, and the Lions go empty. They have an empty backfield, and they have 3 receivers to the right. And I say 3 receivers, that includes Ebron. So 2 receivers and a tight end, but he's not lined up on the line. And you have what I think it was Kelvin. He runs a deeper route and kind of clears some space, and then you have both Ebron and Tate run quick out routes, and Stafford throws the ball to Ebron, and it's not the best throw in the world. It doesn't end up in a completion, but you have 2 Lions players within a couple yards of each other, and Tate isn't there ready to block. Tate's facing Stafford, so either someone runs the wrong route or you have a terrible play design there, and it's so many things like that.
It's tough to say between the two. I thought that he had a few new sets that I hadn't seen before where he used Abdullah and Riddick, and then motioned. He had Riddick, I think, on the lineup as a left slot receiver, and then motioned Abdullah out. And I thought that for a portion of this game, Joe Lombardi had some brilliant setups, some brilliant formations, and then it just seemed like the execution wasn't there. What can we look for in maybe better execution going forward? Was there maybe, like you said, someone running the wrong route? Do you think that's what it was?
Sometimes it looked like because that first play, you see that, and the Lions run a very similar play later. I think it's in the first drive in the third quarter, the drive that I think was the one that sealed their fate, that ended in the Lance Moore fumble. They were moving the ball. They went empty again, and they kind of ran a similar play. This time, Ebron runs the quick out, but there's no one else there. He catches the pass about 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and then turns upfield and gets 13, 14, 15 yards. And that's exactly what they need to do to get them in space. They went empty another time, too, where Stafford was looking the other side of the field. But you had, I believe, Abdullah on the far right side. He runs like just a quick hook, and he's wide open if you hit him right away. A defender gets on him quickly, but you hit him right away. That's all he needs. Stafford has the arm strength and the velocity to get the ball there, to give him that split second to juke someone and get him in space. And they need to do, I think, more of that. I feel like some of their worst plays come from situations where Stafford is under center. They have a fullback in, and I think Burton's played great, actually, and one of the few bright spots on offense. But it's just more of a philosophical thing, with the type of players that you have. I really think they missed Brandon Pettigrew too. I think it's part of the reason why the blocking was where it was. But you don't have Pettigrew there. You don't have the tight ends to be the blocking. Ebron's okay, but you don't want to keep him as an inline tight end. And you're not bringing out an extra offensive lineman often. You're not using Tomlinson in that kind of H-back role, that extra lineman role. So why not have less blockers, have quicker passes, have those types of plays, and get your guys into space?
I know, too, you mentioned spreading the ball around. I feel like one of the Lions' most successful drives, I believe Stafford went 7 of 7 or 7 of 8 and spread the ball around to 7 different players. I know it's only, it's been 2 games, but we haven't seen really much out of Corey Fuller or even Lance Moore past that last game. I believe Lance Moore has 4 targets this year. Corey Fuller has 1. What do you feel is the importance on having those 3rd and 4th wide receivers to be involved in play calling?
Especially with a lot of, to add on to your question, especially with a lot of, it seems like around the league, a lot of 3rd wide receivers, the slot seems to be kind of a heavy targeted area this year. So go ahead.
Well, their slot receiver is essentially Tate. So I mean, he's not 3rd in the rotation, but they do use the slot, and so it's just a matter of the word receiver is where you're.
I would suppose Ebron would probably be ahead of Lance Moore.
He is,
if that's what you're
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's tough to get hung up on the word receiver because if you look at the pecking order of who's going to get the ball,
it's the better athlete.
You have Kelvin,
which is Ebron.
You have Tate. Then Ebron's supposed to be number 3, and then you even I think they need to get Theo Riddick more.
Theo Riddick, honestly, like I said before, they lined him up a couple times they had Abdullah and Riddick in the game and put him out as a wide receiver, and I thought he could catch.
Yeah, he looks comfortable.
You could see that. We've seen that for a while now. He's got good hands, good speed. He looks comfortable. Yeah.
I'd see in practice. Sometimes Riddick makes the most impressive catches that I see. Like he's capable of operating out of the backfield and out of the slot, and I think that gives him an extra dimension. And imagine a backfield where you have Abdullah and Riddick back there, like you were saying. I mean, it's going to be how do you match up with linebackers?
All right, let's move on to the defense. So I don't want to spend too much time on the defense because I actually don't think that they're the real issue here. They don't look great, but I think it's more of an issue of the offensive woes spilling over to the defensive side of the ball. What did you see from the defense this week? Just give us a quick kind of run over the defense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that they've
pun intended, by the way, running over the defense.
I think that they've been okay. I think that you're always going to start at the defensive line because this was an area of dominance last year, and I think Ansa has been the bright spot. He's been the best player probably on the defense. But at the same time, the interior of the line has struggled. I mean, he's been okay. He's been not as great as you would have hoped, but he's been okay. Tyron Walker has created some pressure, and he's played more snaps than any of the interior linemen, which I don't think anyone expected. But he's created some pressure. Hasn't really been great in the run game. One of the first big plays that Peterson had last week was Gabe Wright getting blown up, literally blocked off of his feet. Mm-hmm. So there's been struggles on the interior of the line. Maybe
should we pump the brakes a little bit and recognize that this is Adrian Peterson. Like, this isn't some guy off the street, your local garbage man running the ball. It is AP. It is a legit one of the best running backs of all time. Should we relax a little bit there, or do you honestly think that this rush defense is that bad?
Well, I mean, that bad is I think that they are substantially worse than last year. If that, I don't think they're the worst run. I don't think they're the 0-16 Lions rush defense where you have people coming in and running like 300 yards on them and stuff. But they're like, you see people getting blocked to their feet or off to the ground. I mean, that's not something you ever saw last year. I think what's interesting is I'd love to see on the defensive line, they do it every once in a while, a little wrinkle. They bring Jason Jones inside and they play him at like the 4 or the 5 technique. I'd like to see that more.
Yeah, I actually like Jason Jones a lot too.
He's played well, I think. He at the defensive tackle, but I think he does really well at defensive tackle. But I mean, Levy could make a huge difference coming back. Yeah. Bynes has become the Levy, the weak side linebacker that's playing the most.
Or he's
snaps.
trying to be.
He's not Levy, but I think he
hasn't filled the shoes.
How could he?
Well, I mean, Levy's a good player, but I mean, even Levy in the game, he's not he led our team in tackles, but I mean, he's more of a pass defensive guy. From a passing standpoint now, just focusing on that, I thought actually we didn't have that bad of a game defending the pass. I mean, Minnesota doesn't have the greatest pass offense, but like I was saying last week too, Bridgewater has really grown up fast. He looks like a decent quarterback. Tell us what you think about the pass defense and how they did last week.
I generally thought they did good. I thought, I think that you can expect Slay to be average to above average.
Yeah.
Floor is average.
He's a stud.
He's good.
I think Slay is a legit number one.
He's definitely grown as a player and really impressed me this year.
You know what I really like in what you need from a cornerback is 100% cockiness. Saying you can run a 4.3 walk in a walking boot. Just you can't tell this guy that he's ever going to have a bad day. I love Slay.
Yeah, he definitely told me a couple weeks ago he was the best looking person on the team. After Corey Fuller walked by and he was like, I've been shutting this guy down all week. So he does. He believes in himself and his confidence will never be rattled. He works hard and so his cockiness should never be mistaken for complacency. He works hard. Slay's been good. Glover Quinn's been good. I think Rasheem Mathis, I know people hate on him, but he does his job. He's there.
No, he did his job this week. I thought Rasheem had a good pickup game. I mean, he got picked on a little bit last week, but
I thought Hedebo too. Definitely bounced back. He was out there. You seen him. He was. He had that punch on that one fumble.
Forced two fumbles.
Oh yeah, you are right about that. And
Which, I mean, for the safety end, usually you're one of the later guys coming in. That's your job. So to see a safety actually doing what they're supposed to, getting after the ball, trying to get turnovers, which obviously is huge on defense. I thought the secondary, good game overall.
I think the secondary is becoming the strength of the defense, which is probably not a good thing because you don't want your secondary to be the strongest position you have out there. But I mean, definitely, I think that they've been fine. Maybe when Levy comes back, the linebackers help the front seven that much more. I think that it was interesting that Tulloch played a bit of they took him off the field. They never used to take Tulloch off the field. He was the one that stayed. Even in week 1, he played the most snaps. They took him off, and Caldwell kept going back to this is the packages that the game dictated and stuff, but that was never the case for him. So I thought that was interesting.
When you speak about packages, do you think that maybe they run too many packages on the defense and have too many substitutions? Have guys running on and off the field?
Yeah, you see a lot of the better offensive teams kind of trap people in that way. That's kind of the scheme of Chip Kelly, trying to keep mismatches on the field with quick play calls. And, you know, it might just be the state that we're in. We don't really have the athletes that can play, especially with Levy out, that can play every down, do every sort of job. I mean, it just might be what we have right now. We might not be able to stick with what's out there. We kind of have to make some substitutions, which is not bad. We played Chip Kelly this year, which, I mean, we might have to look forward to that week, and maybe we'll do a little callback then and see how that goes.
So what do we think? Do we think that the defense is trending up with the personnel that they have? Like, obviously last year we lost Sue,
yep.
And we lost Mosley, and we lost Fairley,
yeah.
and that's huge. But do we say that the personnel we have, is it looking that potentially optimistic that they're going to move in the right direction? Might be some chemistry once Levy gets back.
Go ahead and talk about your boy Donald and how we didn't draft him. I know you're itching.
Well, I wasn't itching. I think that it was a catastrophic mistake that the Lions didn't draft Aaron Donald, who is going to be the best defensive tackle in the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years, probably. But at the same time, they have who they have, and you got to go forward with that. I think that the defense is good enough to get this team to be a playoff caliber team if the offense was as advertised in the preseason, which was a top 7, a top 8 offense in the NFL. The offense is a light years away from that right now, and this is going to put too much strain on the defense. This is the same offense that we saw last year, but the difference is this is not the number 2 defense in the NFL right now.
So now we're talking about offense. Let's go right to the main man. Let's go to Matt Stafford. He was banged up this week. He threw a pick. He looked okay, but it's unbelievable the amount of pressure that he was under.
Well, his game looked okay, but he personally looked banged up.
He looked terrible. He was bleeding. Like he
had to stand up for himself with his chin strap on his nose, which was hilarious.
What do you think, Mike?
I think that Stafford, first and foremost, showed his toughness. It's funny, you go rewind a few years ago, and this was the quote-unquote China doll. I think it was Follett. Follett that's called him a China doll.
I mean, we history don't have a love from the Fox News anchors, but they actually talked about how tough he is, and we know we had the Cleveland game. We have a lot of actually film that we could go back on showing his toughness. So, I mean, especially in this game, he got knocked around. You would think that the amount he got hit, that he would have been out in a body bag.
Yeah, it started off the third play of the game. It's funny, the Vikings bring the A-gap blitz, that the Chargers had success with. I thought the Lions did a better job of picking it up. He got a nice chunk play to Golden Tate, but Stafford stood in there, made the pass, and got lit up. And that might have been the play that hurt. He obviously, everyone knows he got X-rays on his ribs, these types of things. That might have been the play. Everyone wants to pinpoint where he got. Might have been one of the biggest hits he took all game was that play.
And we talked a little bit last week about throwing Bridgewater to the Wolves because he was a young quarterback. My God, Minnesota brought the house a few times and no time, just continuous pressure on Stafford. Rough week for him.
Do you think there was anything that he could do to maybe make reads before plays to kind of set up his guys and have better protection?
Has he peaked as a player in terms of intelligence? Can he get any better at reading defenses? at this point in his career.
I think that his football IQ is really high. You can see it when you talk to him, but at the same time, I think that there has been you never know for sure, right? But like it looks,
when you talk to him is very different from
real time
having five guys in front of you.
So do you think it's execution, maybe a lack of patience when he's out there? Like, does he not have that patience? Like obviously like a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady, it is a 7th season with the Lions, and it seems like do you think that he's basically gone stagnant, and do you see him as being our quarterback for the future? Do you think that the Lions, after like his next contract, should kind of basically cut ties with them?
I definitely think that it's kind of in the middle. You have to temper expectations to an extent. Will he ever be Tom Brady? I mean, obviously they're different types of players.
Will he ever be one of the best quarterbacks ever?
Is he going to be Aaron Rodgers? No, he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. But at the same time, are you going to part ways with him? Because that could be a disastrous move. He still is capable of being... maybe a low end. He's not there at the moment, but he could be a low end top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
And teams have certainly won Super Bowls with a lot less.
So maybe not say part ways, but maybe have a backup plan for the future. Because clearly Dan Orlovsky is not a backup plan. Do you think that maybe like they should look at the potential of drafting a young quarterback in the next couple drafts just to have that backup plan, just in case Stafford doesn't work out? Like I'm definitely not jumping on Stafford. I do like Stafford.
We've seen it work. And we've seen that type of idea work with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it was a bit of a circus at the beginning, but I mean that worked out for the Packers. And Drew Luck as well.
Yeah, it definitely did work, and like I'm saying, like I like Stafford. I like him a lot, and I've seen great flashes of him. But when it comes to the team, like I want to see the team succeed, and I want the team to like make these like choices to look for the future. And I feel like like you said with Aaron Donald, we didn't pick Aaron Donald. They had to have some inkling about Sue potentially not coming back. Why not draft a stud like
they knew Sue
like Donald? So again, like I'm not saying get out like Stafford. I just think that maybe we should have some best laid plans for the future.
Well, I mean, I think that it would be foolish of them not to draft a quarterback in the next draft.
In the next draft? You're saying next year?
But I'm not saying invest a first-round pick to replace Stafford.
No, but even as a backup.
They have to develop a backup quarterback. They have to. I mean, that's what the plan was with Colin Moore.
Especially with this type of protection.
I guess, yeah. If your quarterback's going to be hung out there, you're going to probably have to go to your backup, sooner rather than later. I mean, we might see... I don't know, but we might see Dan Orlovsky start a game as soon as this week. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but it could be. Yeah. So and it's funny too because you look around the league even like this is the blueprint against every team. You get to the quarterback. Tony Romo got hurt. Jay Cutler got hurt. Yeah. I mean, there's I think Drew Brees is going to miss some time. They were saying. So there's your quarterback. You need to have a contingency plan, and if they're confident in Dan Orlovsky, good for them. He's shown that he can win some games, but at the end of the day, I don't think that you want Dan Orlovsky starting a chunk of your season if you don't have to. So I think that they need to draft a quarterback, but like that's like a 4th, 5th round project type of player, probably more than anything.
Well, and definitely, I think that the Lions need to start hitting more on their 4th, 5th round players and getting production out of them, and. I just really hope that they start using those thoughts and looking forward to the future because it's tough being a Lions fan. It really is tough being a Lions fan. I feel like you peak, you got 2-3 years of bad years, you peak for 1 year, and
Speaking of the future here, let's talk about some of our upcoming matchups. We'll cover Denver a little bit later on in the show. Maybe get to that. I'm personally not looking forward to that. But
the outlook for the rest of the season, obviously we only have 2 games that we're basing it on. But the three of us before the show took a look at the remaining schedule for the Lions. What do you guys think is our best case and worst case scenario on where we're going?
I'm saying 6-10.
I think you're not in trouble until you lose at home, and so the Lions were 7-1 at home last year. Granted, on the efforts of a great defense, but if they can prove to be that dominant home team, clean up some of these mistakes, and they can run the table at home, then they have a chance to sniff the playoffs. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I think 6-10 is a realistic expectation at this point.
I'm looking at it like this: we have one of the worst after 2 weeks. Granted, I mean, we don't want to say anything is certain after 2 weeks, and like you said, we haven't played at home yet. But after 2 weeks, we have one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL, if not worst. We got coming up Marshawn Lynch, Matt Forte, AP again, Jamal Charles, Eddie Lacy twice, DeMarco Murray, and that ridiculous Eagles backfield. I mean, honestly, one of our bright points is getting out and into the Rams, and we might not have to look at getting run all over against the Rams, but that's about it. I'm saying 6-10.
But like you said too, Mike, it is a game changer when you're playing at home, and it seems like the Lions, unlike most years, really rising to the occasion when it comes to home games. And you look at it, we do have some difficult matchups coming up. The Cardinals, Broncos next week. You got to play the Packers, but there are winnable matches at home. And the loudness of Ford Field is definitely going to, I think, play a part in the outcome of these games. So do you really think that 6-10 is realistic?
Think
we would
of
have
the
never
uncertainty in your voice.
I know there's uncertainty
We don't know.
in my voice. It's obviously
we're in limbo right now. This team was supposed to be good. We're not supposed to be 0-2.
This team was supposed to be good, and I know that a lot of people are writing them off at 0-2, and I totally understand writing them off. But there are other teams that are 0-2: Seattle, New Orleans, the Giants. There's teams in the NFC. There's, I believe, 6 teams in total, including us, that are at 0-2. There's a lot of teams at 1-1. The playoffs still could be an option. You could still squeeze in at the playoffs at 9-7, potentially 8-8. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could still happen.
Philosophy-wise, you're not going to win a lot of games. If you're the worst, you have the worst rush defense in the NFL. You better have one of the best offenses to cover your butt. I mean, if you're just going to let people control the clock with the run and score touchdowns with the run, it's going to be a tough year, man. I'm looking at it like, what good running back don't we play? Let's make that list.
And you're not wrong about that. But also, you're saying about the offense and not being able to sustain good drives. Who's to say that the offense can't turn around? We could see some adjustments on offense that could actually prove to be an actual good point for the team.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I might be a little bit depressed after the 2 weeks. I'm not sure, but I'm personally saying 6.
Oh, I'm definitely depressed as well. I feel like everybody bought into the hype of this team, and what the Lions were kind of selling us on. This team has this high-powered offense, and it's okay. You lost Sue and you lost Mosley and you lost Fairley, but we replaced them with Peloti Nada, and hey, we brought back Jason Jones, which is fantastic. But I really believe that we bought into the hype, and now we're getting back into that. It's 0-2. The season's over.
Sometimes it's better to just step up and say it's not okay. It's not okay that I lost Sue. It's not okay that we didn't pick Donald. It's not okay that Fairley was a disaster. Personality-wise.
What do you think, Mike? And let's lead that into our matchup coming up with the Broncos.
Well, so if Aaron Rodgers was here, he'd be telling us to R-E-L-A-X.
Oh, you want to hear it?
Relax.
Oh,
no,
please.
but seriously,
Shame.
Let's
Shame.
look at some perspective right now. It's been a rough start to the season. It potentially could be a long season, but if you just want to look at what's happening in the present moment, if the playoffs started today in the NFC, a 1-1 team would make the playoffs, meaning that you're only 1 game out, and you have 8 of your next 14 games at home. You protect your home field, steal a couple wins on the road, you could be okay. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but let's look at Denver. It's your first home game coming up. Now, this is where it's going to be a true test, because you're playing a team that...
Do we have to look at Denver? Denver's scary. I don't like to look at scary things.
It's scary because they're living off of their pass rush. And that's something that is...
I mean, to get those 2 athletes in Vaughn and Matt and Ware, sorry. I mean, to get those 2 together, it is Von Miller, I was watching game tape earlier, his engine is like a V12 on steroids. This guy will literally make the play on the opposite side of the field. He's a monster. This guy's a beast.
To clarify, you're not saying that Von Miller is on PEDs?
No, I mean, pun intended. And I did intend the pun.
But seriously, it's going to be tough. They have a great defense, and I understand that the offense has been struggling, but Peyton Manning excels at the type of things that have been eating the Lions on offense, which is those quick in the middle passes.
Yeah. And another, just like we were talking about Brady earlier and maybe Stafford not being able to read defenses. I mean, the guy who wrote the book on reading defenses, he ran the offense, his own offense for the longest time. But one thing we have to look forward to is that he's kind of in a bit of a, I don't know, scuffle maybe. Just the offense was taken away from him this year, and we got an offensive coordinator making the play calls for him.
We'll see what this is the game. I think that if they lose this game and they lose it in lopsided fashion, you could officially write them off. It's tough to write anyone off at 0-3, but this is when it's going to get ugly. But if they can hang,
it's going to be ugly. I think personally, this is, if you think Robinson on the right side was doing damage and beating up your quarterback, and you think that defense was getting after your quarterback, I mean, wait till you see Denver, because they get after it.
Yeah, worst case scenario, Stafford doesn't make it through the game, assuming that he plays, and Detroit gets blown out at home in their home opener. Best case scenario, Waddle starts, looks good at right tackle. Pettigrew is healthy. He is that key blocking element there. They make a couple adjustments, have quick passes. The offense doesn't turn the ball over. The defense hangs in there, and they win the game. So
I got to say, I mean, even from that aspect, just getting away from the pass rush, we got two of the NFL's best pass defenders in Calvin Harris Jr. and Aqib Talib. I mean, this is probably going to be one of our toughest matchups, I think, going against this defense. I personally think that the Broncos probably be one of the better teams in the NFL this year.
Well, they play Broncos, Seattle, and St. Louis.
I mean,
three of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, I think the Rams are our tops right now. But
and it's kind of crazy to think that when you're talking about playing Denver, that you're talking about such a high-powered defense and not talking about Peyton Manning, because usually that's the topic always is Peyton Manning, and he definitely has feasted on the Lions over the course of the years. So we've been privy to seeing that in person, and it's definitely burned into our minds, like some of the great play that he's had at Ford Field. Now, he hasn't been that good this year. Do you think that potentially Detroit could be his coming out party?
Well, that's a thing.
I mean, the fourth. Just to stop you there, the fourth quarter of the game against the Chiefs, he looked comfortable. I mean, if he's got problems with the tips of his fingers and maybe feeling, that might be something that we can get lucky with, and it might be good that we play him early on in the season, because maybe he doesn't get healthy or whatever's going on with him.
Yeah.
Because we obviously don't know for sure. But in the fourth quarter, man, like he was on point. He looked as comfortable as Peyton Manning of old.
Well, I mean, if you're expecting Peyton Manning to come out and throw 80-yard bombs to areas, that's not going to happen.
I'm not saying that,
But if you expect Peyton Manning to take his 4, 5, 6-yard dink and dunk up the field and complete 80-90% of his passes, I could see that happening. And that's the thing that you have to be afraid about. I mean, there might not be a play that Peyton Manning does that you say, oh my God, that was incredible, but you might look at the stat sheet and he has 140 passer rating with 400 yards at the end of the game. So if the Lions can, I can tell you how Denver's going to attack Detroit. I think that we understand that.
Any way they want.
In the middle of the field, short, they're going to attack the linebackers in the middle of the field. Yeah. If Detroit can make the adjustments and stop that from happening and not get destroyed by that defense, then they might have a chance.
And actually, when I was watching the film earlier, the Chiefs actually didn't do a bad job of running up the middle. So, I mean, polar opposite of last week, I would say let's use the middle of the field. Let's get to the middle of the field, get away from those outside rushers, and get away from the strength and the teeth of the defense, which for this team is on the outside. I would say look for, if we can, try and get a lot of smash plays up the middle, some I formations. Let's get the fullback in. We haven't used our fullback at all this season. Let's. Well, I mean,
he's big a little bit.
We might not be tough enough to actually run the ball up the middle, but
now when you're speaking about the fullback, I know that we had a conversation about the power game. What do you think about Detroit's power game on offense?
See, that's the thing. I don't love it. I like I said, I think Burton has been one of. It's hard to say your fullback's one of your best offensive players, but he's been fine.
He's our lion of scrimmage.
Oh God! But
stay tuned to future episodes for future line of scrimmages.
Oh my God.
I think that they need to. I like when they spread the offense out. I like the 5 receiver sets, including Ebron. I mean, you can throw the ball in 2 seconds and neutralize the pass rush. You can throw the ball in 1 second and neutralize the pass rush. You don't need to go heavy. And at the end of the day, you can put all the tight ends and fullbacks and stuff out there. If you got your running back blocking a defensive tackle that blew past your guard, it's game over. You're not going to stop him.
Yeah.
No.
So, I mean, I'm curious to see how the Lions approach this, but whether it's with heavy sets or whether it's with quick passes or the screen game, the run game, whatever it is, they're going to have to neutralize the pass rush against Denver.
I would say run as fast as you can away from anything outside. The screen, don't do it against this defense. These, I'm telling you hear their names, but when you watch them play, it's like they're moving without thinking. Like if you run a screen on them, like the Chiefs ran a screen, I think it was later in the third quarter, and Von Miller just it seemed like it was second nature to him. Like he recognized his plays so easily. I gotta say, I think running up the middle to start, see how it goes. I mean, Matt Stafford, we're praying for you. Hopefully you're all right, but. The secondary against this team, this is going to be a tough week, I think.
I have a question for both of you guys. So from week 1 to week 2, obviously week 1 our issue was Calvin wasn't getting any targets. He wasn't a big focal point. Week 2, all you've seen was Calvin.
10 catches. Right?
Now, Amir Abdullah, you didn't see him at all. You think now they're going to focus more heavily on Amir Abdullah, like you're saying about the run game? Or are they going to spread it out?
You can't only run the ball 16 times and have 8 of those rushes be Matt Stafford. Anyone listening is a fan of this team. Matt Stafford can't be your leading rusher. That's ridiculous.
No, he definitely can't.
I mean, you have Amir Abdullah. You have Joyke Bell. You've essentially got what seems to be one of the more talented backfields that we've had in recent history. You can't. I don't think you can rush him under 25 times. I don't think you can ever play a game for the rest of the season without rushing 25 times and be happy with it.
Well, you have to take what you have. I mean,
yeah, and you do have to take what the defense gives you.
If the run game's not working for you, then you can extend the run game through the passing game. I mean, but you have to sustain drives through. I mean, you got to dink and dunk. You got to do it.
I think this week a lot of leaking out of the backfield, just little dink and dunk, like you're saying. We got to wait for the blitz, notice it. Have Abdullah leak out of the backfield or Riddick leak out of the backfield and catch a little stop route. Just get us some yards that way. That's the only way I'm seeing it personally.
So, do we have any optimism for this week? Do we actually think, like, I'm not making a prediction. We made predictions last week.
I would guarantee that we lose this week. I really don't think. I think Denver is like class of the NFL personally.
I wouldn't go as far. I don't think Denver's class of the NFL type. I think that they've been living.
I'm saying as a team. I mean, they have their weak points. Like, we got to hope that Peyton Manning's not on his game. But
this week, though, it's Sunday Night Football. It's a national audience. We need a coming out party. Do you think our home opener will be our coming out party? Do you think there's potential there?
I absolutely think there's potential. I don't know that I would come out as far as to say that I think the Lions are going to win, but I'm not guaranteeing a loss. I think that and the fact that it's at home, it's their home opener, that their backs are against the wall, I mean, you're going to see what this team's made out of. And you might not like what you see, but I think that this is the week that you're going to see it one way or the other.
All right, we got the optimistic Mike Mady from Scout.com's Lions Report. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, guys. Hope to be back soon.
So before we close out the show, I just want to give a special shout out to Anthony Maria for asking the question that we actually answered during the show about the outlook for the Lions and if they're going to make the playoffs. If any of you who are listening have any questions or any like feedback, we would love to hear it. We have a website up now, sustainpridepodcast.com. Check it out. That's where all the new episodes are. We're going to be building content for the website. We're going to have, polls and questions, and we really want your feedback. So before we close it, Fauna, you have any final words?
For Matt Stafford's funeral or
just in general, like, man.
May you rest in peace. I hope you survive this week.
Thanks for listening, everybody.